There. So I am here with the legendary yet elusive Marquez. I once called him the Ross Perot of Marks in the corner. I now regret that. I think he's much more of a Bob Dole of the Marks in the corner. But we're here to talk about punk rock, which is the most Bob Dole thing in the world. So Mark, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege and many other things. Yeah, we talked about talking a couple times a long time ago. And I heard you talking on Discord yesterday a little bit about punk rock and just really made me think about some things. Hopefully I can remember them and they're interesting and you and we can talk about stuff. So I asked you to talk about punk rock with me.
Sweet. Yeah. Where do you want to start? You want to start with where this starts with like your story? Like what is your involvement with punk rock? And then we can compare it to my like true punk rock ishness scene. Yeah. And by that
Well,
I mean not, but yeah.
I'm gonna try to be conscious of being engaging and not just rambling about myself forever. I'm trying to do that. But so that just like right before we started, you mentioned something about posers, and that's so if this gets recorded and put up online and people actually watch it who like punk rock, we will not be punk enough for them. You know, there's always someone more punk than thou.
There is always someone more Catholic than me. This is
Right.
correct.
Um, it's like maybe I know more obscure punk bands than you, but there are people who know way more obscure punk bands than me, you know. Um, it's like there's people that are like, oh yeah, I've heard those Black Flag bootlegs, I had them. I got them directly from the band. They're like, actually, I've been listening to this late 70s Peruvian hardcore band, that you've never heard of. And it's like, you've never heard of them? Oh yeah, I met him. I hung out with them in Guatemala or something. It's like there's always something like that it's like a pride. And so it's just a funny thing, and because it's like when I won't go too long, but yeah, so I was like really punk like 25 years ago when I was 17. And then I was punk again when I was like 22. And then I've been, kind of less punk ever since. But it's and it's like I look back at that time trying to, how you'll kind of get nostalgic and kind of go back. So I kind of started doing that like a year ago, looking at this old punk stuff I used to be into. And then all of a sudden on my YouTube feed, all these shorts started coming up of these old punk rockers being like, what is punk, man? Punk is this punk. And I was like, no, I got to trip this algorithm. I do not want to see old guys talking about what punk is. It's like the worst thing in the world. However, it was such a big part of my life from when I was like maybe 12 to like early 20s. I was very much into that whole thing. And it's like that's such a formative time. And now trying to be an adult finally in my 40s, well, I've been trying for years. It's like I look back on that and it's touchy. Like I don't I don't want to go in that world anymore. However, it was such a big part of my life, and I still love a lot of that music. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I don't even know what to think about it because I haven't been thinking about it, but it was a big part of my life at one time.
Yeah, one thing I've really thought a lot about, and I still don't have a good answer to this, is what separates punk rockers from metalheads. Because those are really the two main veins that hard rock went from in the 70s, as I see it. I mean, there are other forms of rock, but as I see it, there's really a divide between metal and punk. And we don't have to tackle that yet, but I was curious, like what drew you into punk when you said you were 12? Like what started you down that road? And then how would you relate how you related to punk versus metal?
Well, when I was a little bit younger, maybe like 10 or 11, I liked Metallica, like
Mhm.
Anthrax and stuff. But then when I was about 12, in about the seventh grade, that was like the middle 90s when Rancid and Green Day and all that stuff was going on. And
That
I
was my
lived
time
in
too. Yep.
and I lived in the Central Valley, so I was like 2 hours from Berkeley, you know. So it was like you knew people that were in those bands or whatever. And then it was so close and people would go to all these shows um and then I was like very much into skateboarding too. Like I was an athlete when I was a kid, but then in my early teens I just got into skateboarding and got absolutely obsessed with it. So skateboard and the thing about punk rock, the thing that drew me in is because you hear like in the middle 90s you hear music on the radio and maybe you hear some weird CD that you know your older cousin lets you listen to, but other than that there like other music doesn't exist. But skateboard videos always had this weird obscure music, and so it just went hand in hand. And so you know I think like younger people have no idea like how just how insulated everything was. You couldn't just search stuff out. Like Skank is making that zine. He's another guy that'd probably be fun to talk about punk with, but he's making that zine, and that is like a throwback to a 30 or 40-year-old like punk tradition of that's where you would learn about weird underground bands were from these zines. And so it was like this other world that was, this really interesting other world to me that drew me in. And the music is so energetic. Even now, like I was listening to a bunch of punk today, going back, and it really is still good. I consider it a type of folk music because but you were talking about what's the difference between that and metal. That's a great question. I feel like metal is a bit more refined. Metal is more musical almost. I'd say it's a little bit more, not melodic, but it's a little bit more classical. And punk is more folk in just in a weird way. Uh, but I like folk. So
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like as an art form, I actually appreciate metal far more than I appreciate punk. I think the depth and the variety of metal is greater and more significant and more dramatic. To me it spans the range of what's possible with rock, like rock opera, basically. In the depth and the heaviness and um something about punk is it's oh man, that's so interesting. I was gonna say it always skates on the surface. It's always light. It's always even when it wants to like destroy everything, it's light. It's not taking it seriously. Like the even when it wants to burn it all down, it's not taking that seriously that it's burning it all down. So it's skating on the surface. And the when you were and I didn't make this connection until right now as you were talking about it. But the we're always talking about surfing in the corner, like surfing, order and chaos, like so, that idea of the optimal grip of the moment, and surfing is that optimal grip, and that's what skateboarding is for punk rock, and I think where skateboarding is the sport, punk rock is the melody or the anthem or the soundtrack of that sport. And I think they go hand in hand. Now, there are those that might say, oh, that's just California punk and you don't know British or you don't know New York. It's like, okay, whatever. But
yeah,
like,
I
um,
hope I hope there's some comments like that.
but I think so I just looked this up right now and skateboarding started late 40s, early 50s when surfers in California wanted something to do when the waves were flat. It's really
Yeah.
interesting. So you have a natural you have a natural chaos, which is the water, and then you have man-made chaos, which is urban jungle, concrete, brutalism, just absolute ugliness that is like the postmodern corporate America 50s and 60s, all that stuff. And then what emerges from that are skate parks and the punk rockers and yeah, like that to me seems very intimately connected.
Yeah, and so like in my middle teenage years started we would like go on these pilgrimages to San Francisco, which was the mecca of skateboarding in the 90s, and it was like 2 hours from where we lived. And so we would go there and our absolute idols were pro skaters.
Tony Hawk and
And
whatnot. Yeah.
well, Tony Hawk, I mean, we were so hip that Tony Hawk was like not cool, you know?
Because he was too mainstream. Yeah. He's like Green Day,
Yeah.
but for skating.
even even though everyone will bow to Tony Hawk as the greatest ever, but whatever, it's like you're just a punk kid. I actually met Tony Hawk one time, and we were just joking, like me and my friend were joking around, like who cares. But uh we would go to San Francisco and just see our idols like on the street. It wasn't even at a skate park. It was just we knew where the famous skate spots were in videos. And the thing about skateboarding is that um like you can learn tricks at a skate park, but if you're gonna have a great legendary video part, it's gotta be on the street. Like it has to be somewhere that wasn't made for skateboarding. Like that's what is like beautiful in a skateboard video is like when somebody does something on a handrail or stairs or something that wasn't made for skateboarding. And so yeah, like it just goes, and also like there's a lot of hip hop too that was seemed like everybody I skated with listened to punk rock and hip hop both. And
That's
yeah,
like punk rock to me is very urban. And yeah, so you have like that California mixture of the surfing with something that's very urban. Like when you were saying folk, I was like, well, I'm thinking farm country folk music, and then it goes like full urban and it becomes punk.
I would almost call punk suburban because so much of it is like middle class white kids,
Yeah. Yeah.
that are trying to be urban, that are going to the city and trying to
Yeah.
be tough. I mean, that's most punk rockers, you know. Now,
Yes.
I maybe not most, but that was me, I grew up in a decent family
Yeah.
and wanted to be
Well,
punk.
yeah, I wanted it both ways. Exactly. So like I wanted to have one foot in the culture in that culture and I felt drawn to it, but not to the point of throughout my life I always felt like I could get what I wanted without giving up what I had sort of thing. And so I wanted to continue forward in like a normal life and I saw the value of normality, you could say, or in two-parent household, stable family, all that stuff. And at the same time, like I saw, especially post 9/11, like 9/11 was a very precipitating event for me. And well, and this is the case in any high school. If you're like a high in openness kid in any high school, you're inevitably on the fringe of whatever's like, cool and normal, you could say. So like I was a jock. I was fairly athletic, but I was pretty small. And I was also like very intellectual and into science fiction. And so I was somewhat on the fringe in high school. And but it wasn't like I was a loner. It wasn't like I was nihilistic. That was another thing. I was never nihilistic. And so for me, a song like Basket Case was much more of like the ridiculousness of my situation than something like, I don't know, what's the Rain and Blood by Slayer or something
Yeah.
like, you know.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So and maybe it also matched my energy level. Like I've always been a pretty energetic person. I would say like PVK when he met me, he's like, yeah, Neal's full of energy or whatever. I was like, it's it's just normal for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, also being in your teens, like, you got a friend that has a drum set, like a beat up cheap drum set, and another friend that has an electric guitar with an amp, and you have a band. That's it. You have a punk band, and you can just make terrible, stupid songs, and it doesn't matter. And that's one of the things about punk. It's like metal. You actually have to learn arpeggios, and you have to like kind of be in tune and on and with the beat. You know, and yeah, that energy is just. Um, but the line between punk and metal, uh, I don't know. I don't know what direction to go with this. Like, I feel like there's so many, but nihilism. hmm,
Well, like I had this discussion with Chad because we've been, he's been obsessed with Sleep Token for a while. He got me into Sleep Token maybe like 6 months ago now, maybe longer than that. Maybe it's been almost a year. But it took him a while to get me into Sleep Token, like a while. And we both like he stumbled on this band, Bill Murray, maybe about 8 or 9 months ago. I got into Bill Murray much faster than I got into Sleep Token. And it's because like I'm sure there are other bands that have spanned the punk metal divide, but Bill Murray in my mind is much more Bilmuri is
yeah,
it's much more on that fence. Like he can play on both sides of that fence just fine. And like he does the really heavy stuff about like I'm obsessed with this concert, this live concert. I listen to it all the time, and I still less so now, but like there was a period of time where I was listening to that concert as I was working, like almost once a day. Like I just love listening to that concert. And it's Bill Murray live in Atlanta. It's such a good concert. It's so good. And there's saxophone in it, and there's jazz elements, and there's country elements, and like he'll play a song like this song is about getting cheated on if that's ever happened to you. And then the next
yeah,
song is like this song's about spinning. It's
yeah,
like he goes from like the heaviest stuff ever to like the just like this ridiculous and then they even joke about it on stage where Gabby Rose, who's the whatchamacallit, she's the saxophonist, and she says like every time Johnny introduces that song, he just says, it's about spinning. And Johnny's like, don't overcomplicate it, Gabby. It's just about spinning.
yeah. Like, what does that mean about spinning?
It's just about spinning.
Just spinning in general?
We're spinning around. That's what he
Okay.
says. You got to listen to the concert. And then, but like that's an extremely punk rock thing in my mind. It's like the punk rock thing is to like compose Beethoven's Fifth Symphony or something, and then like call it something like Bill Murray that no one will be able to find it because they'll just get the actor Bill Murray. So you make something
Right.
ridiculously good, and then you treat it like it's nothing. And that is I love that. I love that because I think I love it because this is where Christianity and punk rock begin to mesh for me. Is because it's this radical detachment from like trying to get what you want. And there's something about punk rock and it's like radical detachment from everything that I think is somewhat holy. It is the jester. And I'm not saying punk rock is
It
holy. I'm
some
not
some
saying
of
that.
it, no,
But
no, no, but some strains of it are definitely like self-destructive or self-sacrificing, but actually self-destructive.
yes.
And but they're. I was listening to interview with the guy Johnny X from the band X years ago on NPR, and he's like, everybody used to say that punk rock was about destruction. It's not. It was about community and freedom. And I was thinking, bro, no, it's not, dude. It's about getting drunk and going crazy. I mean, it's about lots of stuff, but there's bands like that are just downright self-destructive and
Yes.
evil. I mean, not not more evil than anything else necessarily, but like Sid Vicious or like that guy from the Germs, so many deaths, so many suicides and overdoses and all of these things, and
It's like,
it shows in the music. It sounds self-destructive.
yeah, it's like when you play the role of the edge case and you lean into that. Like the edge case is your assumed role, then the temptation is to really go all the way outside. And all the way outside is something like the way I think of this is punk rock splits in the wood. And that split even happens within individual bands, let alone like, within punk rock as a whole. But the split is something like none of it's redeemable. It's the whole world is shit all the way down. It's basically Gnostic. It splits into Gnosticism, like the whole world is deserves to burn and everyone and everything. And then the other side of it is like poking fun at the man or whatever the powers that be. And that side, the fun side, I was much more, and the fun side is ridiculed by the heavier side that wants to burn it all down. And they say, "Oh, you're not true
Like
punk
very
because
serious. Yeah.
yeah, like you're not true punk because like you're not heavy enough, you're too mainstream, you're too corporate, you're this, whatever it is." And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, that's probably true. But um I'll give you an example. Blink 182. I love Blink 182.
Yeah.
Like um oh the lyric is something like I called your wife the other day. I told her her husband's in jail. The state looks down on sodomy.
Yeah.
And that's about the time she walked away from me. And like
Mhm.
lyrics like that and just antics like that. Like just
Yeah. That was kind of like the 90s pre-pop punk almost, like same vein as Green Day. Their song, what was
yeah.
that song he had about like pleasuring himself, and it's kind of just, that's such like the 90s Gen X thing, just like what does it matter? I'm just gonna stay home and whatever. Um
Well, it is dealing with the nihilism and the emptiness, but it's doing so in this lighthearted way. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and I think all these forms of music have that, whether it's hip hop, whether it's some forms of metal. Um, yeah, I don't know. Like the image I had in my mind of punk compared to metal, and this is like a gaming image. But in role-playing games, like you have these classes that are very common in role-playing games. So you have like the warrior, and the warrior is like he takes a lot of damage, or a barbarian or whatever. He's like often called a tank. Like he's big, takes a lot of damage, moves slowly, but can do heavy, amazing things. And that's metal. And then another class is the rogue or the assassin. Like it's basically like this light and trickster type like slash and just moves very quickly. If you hit the assassin, he's gonna take a lot of damage because he's a string bean, but he's very hard to hit and very agile and and that's more of what punk is as I see it. Um, it's light on its feet and it hits hard and it's a trickster. Like metal is not
yeah.
really a trickster. Um,
No, yeah, yeah. Metal is much more sincere. Punk
yeah.
rock, there's always a little bit of irony. But the thing is, there is crossover between punk and metal. There, like Danzig from the Misfits, he like did his solo thing that was more metal, and he's got a great song called "Am I a Demon?" It's a great song. It's a great question. I feel like it's a great Christian song, even though he's an occultist. It's
I got to
like
check that
it's a
out. Am I a demon? I don't
yeah,
think I've ever listened to that. I've definitely listened to the Misfits, but am I?
it's got a great metal guitar riff. Uh, very like guttural, probably open D or something. But and then like Slayer, they did an album called Undisputed Attitude, which was all punk covers, and that's really good. That's very good. Um, and then yeah, Metallica covered punk songs and all that. But there it is so similar but so different. And yeah, but there's like when I was about so coming from like a pretty fundamentalist Christian background, it was like an attempted isolation from the bad of the world. And my folks, they just had no idea the debauchery. Like they're good people. It wasn't like a total naivety. But some of it. And so it's like I'm being exposed to all of these things that they just have no idea about and don't understand. It's like when I heard, I really loved um, early Black Flag, the first singer Keith Morris. He went on to form the Circle Jerks after he left Black Flag, but like that era of music, he's so nihilistic and ironic and just like really an a-hole, just like and I don't know that it like awakens something in me too much where as a kid, I almost like believed in it. And he was like kind of like an incel. There's no like there was
Yeah.
no songs about being, about being an alpha male. It was just like being a self-destructive dirtbag. But however, like having a blast doing it with high energy and just the crazy thing is Keith Morris, he's in this band now called Off. And they just released an album like last year, or maybe this year, and it is solid. Like I can't believe a guy he's been sober like 20 something years, but he's in his late 60s and they just released an album and it's got a theme of like it's called Free LSD because it's about like California mind control, conspiracy theory, aliens and all that stuff, but it's just really good. Like I'm still a big fan of his, but that early stuff it was just and the guitar is like out of tune and like out of tempo, but just really hard. And I don't know. It just I just listened to it all the time. And they would put it, sometimes it's like a lot of these songs, I didn't even have the CD. They would be in skate videos and I would just rewind the skate video over and over so I could listen to the music. But but yeah, I don't know like the spirit of punk where it came because
Oh,
it's
I know where it came from. I mean, um, it came from 70s recession, post 69, hippie in love. Like the 70s generation didn't see a lot of prospects. 70s London was pretty awful. You had high unemployment, high inflation, and you had the next generation after the 60s, and they wanted to see themselves as different than so it's a deliberate setting apart. It's like we are not this, whatever this is. So you could say Martin Luther is like we are not this, or we are, so they define themselves in relation to the body that they're descended from, you could say.
like
Because
Johnny Rotten had a shirt that said "I hate Pink Floyd."
yep, yep. So
Um,
if everybody else is wearing their hair long, you cut it short. If everybody else is trying to look, pretty and beautiful in order to win over the opposite sex, you're all full of shite. You're putting lipstick on a stuck pig, because
but
truthfully, there's a lot of that hypocrisy. of yeah, we all just gonna get along, and it's all corporatized and it's backroom deals and it's there, you know, on the
Eventually punk was that. I
yeah,
I mean I think there was I think that there are powers involved in everything, like even if in small degrees, but yeah, but coming even before, so you have the Sex Pistols and the Ramones kind of at the same time across the sea.
yeah,
But then, but they kind of came from, uh, they were inspired by like the New York Dolls, who were like inspired by the Stooges, who were inspired by Velvet Underground. And then where do you like, I feel
everyone's
like,
inspired by Velvet Underground.
yeah, but Velvet Underground, I feel like what proto punk or something, but where does it go before Velvet? Because Lou Reed said he was inspired by like Raymond Chandler and Bob Dylan, but like this punk thing, I feel like punk is in charge now. Like Elon Musk is like kind of a punk in a way, you know? And
Yeah.
now that has evolved, that spirit, like the punks are now in charge. We live in a punk rock run world almost. You know, like Trump is kind of punk in a way, or he was
Yeah.
in
No,
his first
you
in
are
his
right, actually.
in
It,
his
it it's
first
it's
in
almost
his
like we're gonna do whatever we feel like right now, and the present moment is all that matters, and let's do it, and no future for you. Like, yeah.
but and as far as like the TLC, the way that I think that, because we were kind of talking about if the TLC relates with punk at all. And
Well, what happened? Okay, real quick, and we'll go
no,
there. But
no
let me just
problem. No
let me
problem.
just throw a little, because what happens, and I think you're alluding to this with Elon and with Trump. It's like what happens when the center becomes punk? Because like, is
Yeah.
punk what punk does, or is punk always the fringe? Because the question is like, because I wrote something else down in preparation for this, and I think this might be a good place to bring it in. So like, Jordan Hall has talked about the two modes. I don't know if you've seen him talk about that. But one mode is like you're stable. I forget what he calls that, but it's like you're stable. You're in a tribe, in a culture. Everything's good, and you're just humming along as part of the machine, and things are good. And then the second mode is like the exploration mode or exploratory mode. It's the sense that like the herd is thinning and things are not going well, and you're kind of you're on the lookout for what you need to do, where you need to go, on the and that's really how I see you could say that's the role of the fringe. And there's always a fringe. And but and where I was thinking about that is like there's always a fringe, or there needs to be always a fringe at every level of principality. So you need to have a level of fringe at like the Mark S level of person, because stuff is changing in Mark S's life, and you got to be able to recognize like, oh, this isn't the same as it's always been. I gotta be aware of that, or be able to adapt to that. But you also need the level of the fringe at the church, like, this is what's happening in the local church environment, or the city, for instance. This is what's happening outside of the city or in relation to the city. And then Chad and I have been going on about all along the Watchtower. Like the Watchtower is the fringe of a city. Like it's the thing that's outside the city. Technically, it's actually outside the city, but it's the thing that's watching out for what's coming on the horizon that could affect or change or threaten the city. And the so there's always that fringe at every level of principality, whatever it might be. And
Mhm.
I think punk, to me, just punk is when punk is at its best, it is seeing what the center is missing, and it's pointing that out to everyone by keeping it light and jokey and like a jester in the court and saying like, this is what's wrong with the king. This is what's wrong. And so like if the king himself is punk, then what does it mean to point and say in an edifying way or in a constructive way, like this is what's wrong with the king. Like what happened if the king is punk, then the jester has to become authentic, virtuous, sincere, steadfast. Like
Yeah,
does the punk then become uh does the punk then become mainstream tradition?
right. Well, I feel like that's what's happening now. I don't know. Everybody online says that young people are going to Catholicism and Orthodoxy. I don't know if that's true. I mean, I met a young guy at estuary, mid-westuary that I had dinner with a young kid that was such a way, but it seems like that's what's happening. But I don't know. It's like the county I live in, it's very conservative. But when I go over to Milwaukee to certain neighborhoods, I mean, everybody is punk. Nobody has a gender, nobody has it's like we're not dressing according to any style other than what's as weird as possible. And so it's fragmented. It's very strange. And I just with all that we can know now, I have no idea how to even explain where we are in the world. I'm just glad I've come back to faith because I can't make sense of what's going on right now. And it's like the punks, the old punks, like Henry Rollins or Ian MacKaye or Keith Morris or whoever, like they now, if you listen to their old music, like Black Flag had a song called White Minority, how whites are going to be a minority, and uh, Minor Threat had Guilty of Being White,
No effects, don't
and
call me white.
right, but and so it was almost like anti woke back at and now these people are like the king of woke, and these like old yeah these old punks are on NPR, you know, and um,
Yeah, like I think NoFX was way ahead because they were one of these true bands that never signed with a major label, was still popular, and they were way ahead of their time. Like they were, yeah. If you go back to who NoFX was in the 90s and you look now, it's like that's kind of mainstream pop culture now. And yeah.
yeah, that era of punk in the 90s, it was pretty well produced compared to the stuff in the 80s and the 70s. Um, and I was um, I was a pretty big fan of NoFX and this Epitaph Records. But I was listening to this song by Bad Religion. It's called The Answer. And this is why I feel like punk rock is folk music because the lyrics the lyrics are about trying to find this is like uh proto new atheism. It's like Gen X skepticism. And this song is it's actually a great written song, but it's all about these verses of like men throughout history who have tried to find the answer to everything. And it's pretty good lyrics. And it was very strange because these guys in their early 20s like use they sounded very intellectual and intelligent, you know. And so
The
it
chorus of
was
that song. Yeah. So I know Bad Religion fairly well, but I actually haven't, I don't think I've heard that song. And one of my best friends in college, he had a Bad Religion backwards flag tattooed on his, I think his
yeah,
left uh, breast. And anyway, but the chorus is, don't tell me the answer, because then another one will come along soon. I don't believe you have the answer. I've got ideas too. But if you've got enough naivete and you've got conviction, then the answer is perfect for you. The answer is perfect for you. Yeah, it's like man, it's like the rise of guru culture and yeah.
And the like every verse of that song tells a different story about some sage who thought he found the answer and didn't. And it's like, but it's like fictional. It's like archetypical, like, it's pretty. I like that stuff. And then I was also listening to Dead Kennedys today, and that was, yeah, like they had that song California Uber Alice, which is all against liberalism, basically, like against hippies, against your kids will meditate in school, mellow the hippies won't come back, you say, mellow out or you will pay, and it was strange how now those they basically turned into what they were railing against. But
Well, the only thing that's left, as I see it, is the only thing that's left are things that are hard. And so I actually see the end result of this being like a separation of the wheat from the chaff, in that anything that's hard or difficult to do, so it's either it takes a lot of skill, a lot of time, a lot of practice, a lot of dedication, that becomes the fringe, the true fringe, you
mm,
know, because there's not many that can do it because it's really hard. Um, that I think is the redemption of all of it, of the flip is yeah. What do you think of that?
I mean, I think you're onto something there, and that's something that I really struggle with. Have no kids, have no hard responsibilities like that. I mean, I'm married, and but my wife, it's like she works, it's not like I have to provide for her necessarily. Um, and yeah, just trying to put down my stupid phone. That seems to be one of the biggest struggles in my life, you know, just really like it's, and that's why, just the thing about doing hard things, like I feel like this connected somehow. I just appreciate your time to talk. I texted you like it would be fun to talk about this. I'm asking for your time. I mean, I actually feel like that's extremely valuable because that's what the whole world runs on is people's time. It's like everybody's just trying to get us to scroll their ads and their things, and subscribe to their thing. And so, it's like sacrificing your time. Uh, it's that seems like a big deal. When I can just unplug and touch grass, I mean, it really is a thing. And do hard things. Yeah, I think, yeah, because it's. I think boomers don't get it. It's like, well, these kids they can afford a phone, they can afford a house. It's like, no, man, that's not the way it works. Like, and then the phone, the I know it's like in the end we are responsible for our own souls, but woe unto him who causes one of these little ones to sin. And I feel like these phones, like all they like 90% of what they want us to do is just sin.
Yeah.
Even if it's not like looking at porn, just getting pissed off on Facebook is like really bad. It's really bad for you.
I think that goes back to what punk rock is definitely not is delayed gratification. Like if there's a
Yeah,
theme
yeah.
that's further, so that's weird about me because I've always had a sense of the importance of delayed gratification. Like even when I was in high school and college, and but I always had this trickster sense too. Meaning, I'll give you an example. I very early I figured out, and this is in my high school career, that so this is probably 25 years ago now. So I was about 14, 15. Yeah, so I'm 40 now. But very early I figured out. So you had to write an essay. Essays were always 5 or 7 paragraphs. And sometimes, or when I started out, I would like have to write like a 7 paragraph essay, and I would spend 2 or 3 hours on it at home. I'd rewrite it, and I'd get like an A minus. And then there was like maybe this was like freshman year when I forgot to do it, and I was like, oh, I have a study hall period or I have lunch, and I'm just gonna do it like right there at lunch or study hall. And so I had 40 minutes to do it, and I did it, and I handed it in, and I could like consistently get a B plus. Like I would consistently do like slightly worse than if I spent like the 2 or 3 hours on it. But if I just gave it my all in that 40 minutes, so I could get like 95% of the benefit from like 20 or 30% of the work. That was something I kept within me, and I still keep that within me now. Um, as like a really important, valuable lesson. And that sort of is rebellious right there because it's like, is it better to like always do my best or is it better to figure out my priorities properly sort of thing? It's like a meta level of punk beyond like what normal parents would say, let's say, or like normal good society would say. You work as hard as you can and you work da 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 da, you know. And so I don't know what it was within me that's like I do this like meta calculation that like, it's good enough. Let's move on, sort of thing. Um, and there was, I even thought that way in regard to drugs too, because like I remember in high school, like they do anti-drug campaigns, and it's like all drugs are bad, basically. Like drugs are bad. And then the problem is like the more you get to know that, the more like you understand that when you put marijuana and heroin in the same category, it's a problem. Like it's a real
Yeah,
problem. And um and the same as like, well, alcohol is legal. And then you actually like chart on a chart like how addictive but also dangerous or damaging a substance is. And you see that alcohol is actually beyond most drugs in terms of both danger and addiction. And then that's legal. And it's like, wait, something's not adding up here. And then but then
hmm,
it's more complicated than that because there is a slippery slope and that is a real thing. But it's like, I guess as a young kid, I'm thinking to myself like, no, there's more complexity here than just like drugs are bad and I can figure this out. Again, it's like I can have my cake and eat it too. Like that's always been my like I can be the jester when I need to, but I can also be in the court as a normal dude. Yeah. What do you think
you
about
were
that?
who I thought I was. I would do my calculation and then everything would go out the window. I would say, well, I could do this and this and this. And then yeah, it never worked for me. I never had control. So when it came to that. But that's a good observation about instant gratification. Because
Yeah.
I feel like, I think it was kind of a suburban thing where you think about the media of the 80s and 90s, it was just so squeaky clean and wholesome, and kind of boring. And so when you're 15 or 16, you want adventure and you know, you want excitement. And so this just offers that to you, along with the drugs and everything else. But but
I
I
didn't I
was
didn't
I
do any of that in high school actually. Like I was a pretty good kid in high school, but like in my heart, in my soul, like I was pretty punk rock. It is mainly I was a pretty good kid in high school because like I didn't want to work really. Like okay, I didn't care enough about having a car to work because working would have taken up my time and taking up my time would have taken me away from video games. And if I can just hang out with my friends doing crazy stuff in video games, like I am perfectly fine doing that because like you know what I mean? Like the skate kids at the skate park or at the mall they were not my kids. They were not my people. Like my people were like hardcore video gamers. Like we were early days internet prior to the .com bu bust. Okay, this is another punk rock
Mhm.
thing. Prior to the .com bust, Net Zero and other internet was actually free. And the way it was free is it was a bubble, like they were subsidizing. This is why I recognize AI as a bubble right now. We could talk about that. It's an unrelated topic, but I recognize the
Mm,
same pattern when I was a kid in regard to free internet. It's like it's free and they give you all these things. They give you free internet, and all the only requirement is you have this ad box that has to show up on your screen somewhere. And then as like a 15-year-old kid, you can download a hack for that instantly. You could download something that like hides the ad. Like we figured that out so fast. And so we're basically clogging our parents' phone lines, playing
yeah.
StarCraft, in this is like 1998, 1999. And and yeah, that's
Those were the best years ever of the earth that ever existed.
it was pretty good.
1998 and 1999. Doesn't
Yeah,
get
man.
any better than that.
It was good. Like I learned to type fast because of that, because there was no Skype or Ventrilo. Ventrilo was the uh, progenitor of Skype. It was like a server where you could do talking with other people over the internet. But we weren't even in '98. We weren't even in Ventrilo territory yet. So like the only way to communicate with your friend is like you either had a separate phone line, which I didn't have. So I just had to type, and that's how I learned to type fast because like they're coming on the left-hand side. Like it was the only way to like you were forced to communicate quickly in order to win the game. And when you care about winning the
Yeah.
game because the Protoss are coming in with carriers and you need to bring over your hydralisks in order to
Mm,
anyway.
yeah. And yeah,
But sorry. So that was my high school. But when I got to college and then I got to have lots of friends who were chain smokers, pot smokers, occasional ecstasy, shrooms, LSD, and then like whippets. Like I never did whippets because it seemed ridiculous to me. But like, it's like the least like I there are certain drugs that are like so unhealthy for you and like
yeah,
the benefit to like danger ratio is so bad.
yeah.
It's just like what the heck are you doing? But like but once I don't know. Like in our minds, we were always smarter than the system. But even while that was going on, like there was a kid who was probably smarter than I was, who was in the honors dormitory freshman year, and it was just skating by with like a 1.5 GPA. So like obviously we weren't smarter than that. Like some of us were okay, but others of us were like that kid should have had like straight A 4.0 and but I would not at all be surprised if he ended up in AA within a year or two after that. But like, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's that reckless abandon where, yeah, we'll figure it out. The world is our oyster. Let's have fun, whatever it is.
I
And yeah, go ahead.
well, yeah, I don't want to go too dark, but it's like, you know, in the TLC, like Midwest Jewelry actually really changed my view of all of it. Um, Not that I didn't care before, but I cared a lot less. Um, like I felt like I made a couple true friends and many pretty cool acquaintances. And now I feel like I actually know a couple people, and I feel like they actually know me because now most of everybody that was there knows who I really am. Hopefully, I'm not fake online or whatever. I'm trying not to be a character because I have reasons for being anonymous. But one thing about it is like I was using TLC as a way to come back to Christianity because it was so uncomfortable for me and difficult. And TLC was a godsend to just go into an estuary, this pool of possibly toxic, possibly holy water, you know, and swim around and see what happens and hear all these weird ideas from Calvinism, universalism, fundamentalism, New Age, everything. And it's fun and just talk trash uh, but then it's like meeting people, it's like, oh, these are like actually educated, accomplished people. Like I really am, I'm doing okay in life. I'm doing pretty good compared to millions of people, but like I really made a lot of mistakes. Like I was a dumb kid. And so like just kind of inevitably comparing myself to people, it's like, I gotta tread lightly here. I'm actually very fortunate to be in contact with a lot of these people, you know, even that aren't close friends. I've got people's numbers and contacts that, you know, pretty, pretty cool people, you know, that I wouldn't have met here in any other way. And I am not, like, I don't have much to show for my life, you know. I'm still working on stuff. I haven't given up, but it's like, I definitely had lot of weird experiences, but it's just kind of humbling. Like I'm not an academic or I don't or any of these things or even like I shouldn't even be alive. Like being a punk, and this goes back to punk. Like when I was into it, I was like a true believer. And now looking back, I was like, was this all just demonic? I was so possessed by that spirit, you know. Um, I I really I don't know. I really like I almost overcompensated because I grew up in a religious formation and then left and I had to like prove my street cred, so I was like extra insane almost. But so but then there was always guys in the scene kind of like you that were just like normal guys but liked the music and stuff, Um,
I think one of the things I admired and envied about Chad, and I suspect similar to you, is that like Chad just feels everything so much more intensely than I feel it. And he sees things and hears things and understands things more intensely. Like it feels to me like he just lives harder in everything. And I've always had this like, I'll give you an example. Friend invited me to a Slipknot concert in 2008, I think. It was at the Alliant Energy Center. Chad said he went to the previous show that they had, not that one at the Alliant Energy Center, but like I missed, you know. But I went to this Slipknot concert. Coheed and Cambria opened that for them. And I remember when Slipknot got really into the middle of it, and so they have a drummer who's like he's like floating in the air, spinning on like while he's and doing, and they had multiple drummers doing that and all this, and I had to like remove myself. I wasn't even like in the mosh pit or anything like that. I wasn't that, far down, but like, excuse me, just from the normal people, I had to remove myself and like I went up into the upper stands and I just watched at a distance. Like I didn't want to participate. I didn't want to be in it at that moment. I just wanted to observe and I just wanted to see it. And I didn't want to be in it. And like I remember as I was watching it, I like, and this was, keep in mind, like I wasn't an atheist at this point, but I was very agnostic. Like I was not, I was definitely not a Christian. Like I did not consider myself Christian. I considered myself a deconstructed, like just, you know, I was beyond that at this point. But like as I was watching it on stage, I the image that I had in my head is like, oh, they're summoning a demon. That's what this is. This is summoning a demon. Like
sure.
that's actually what was going through my mind. And this is when I was like in the center of my atheism, you could say, or non-theism, whatever. Um, yeah.
Um, so did you uh extract yourself because I mean, was it just loud or you just felt discomfort, so you just got out?
Discomfort. Yeah,
Yeah.
discomfort.
And then
Another
after you did,
experience.
then from your observing down, you thought it was kind of demonic or something.
Yeah. Well, like because I'll have a visceral reaction if I'm in a situation or a place where it doesn't feel right, it doesn't feel good, and my go-to reaction for that, and I don't like crowds generally speaking, but usually I'm fine unless I get that feeling. Um, and my go-to reaction in that situation is like I want to be alone, or I at least want to be in a situation where like I'm in the corner and I can see the exit and I can survey the situation. Like
Yeah,
if the way I equate different people in the corner, like Grim's a wolf, Chad's a bear, McMo's a panda, all these characters.
yeah,
Um, the way I think of myself is, or if I am forced to like pick my behavior patterns into one of those animal categories, I'm either a dog or I'm something like a raven because I like being above. I don't like being too much into it, but often I'm very much into it. If the spirit is right, then I trust it. Then I'm all in. I'm either like all in if the spirit's right, or I remove myself so I can see it at a distance. Um, yeah.
yeah. I feel like you have a pretty, I don't know, you got a pretty good voice in the corner. I feel like usually brings stuff really good. I guess a Raven does that. Um, but with me, it's like one one thing I've become conscious of since I've been trying to be like more of a faithful Christian is like not even that I'm afraid of other people, I'm afraid of myself being carried away, almost like you were saying with the crowd. Like I can be, get caught up in the spirit of a thing and be led to all of a sudden in a situation like, and I actually felt that at Midwestuary. I remember
Mm,
like sitting there, not that I thought this bad spirit. I'm not, that's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is like that first day after the first couple speakers, I just decided to sit in the back. And it was like, this is the fellowship of the spirit. What does that even mean? Does that mean that we're all fellowshipping in one spirit? I'm not so sure about that. I like what PBK said. We're all here for different reasons, but we're all here. I'm thinking that was one of my favorite quotes from the whole thing. Like, and it's like, yeah, we're all here for different reasons. And everybody, just about everybody I met was extremely cool. Um, at the same time, um, like wondering what is going on here. If we're talking about spirits, which we didn't even really talk about that much or the speakers didn't, like what is going on in the invisible realm here? What battles are actually being fought right now? Because even though it was a kumbaya time, it's like there's definitely spirits at odds, you
yeah.
know.
Well, how would
And yeah,
how would you say those spirits at odds compare to AA spirits at odds?
it's very similar. It's very similar. Um, I would almost say that in a lot of ways, I've been thinking about it like AA. When you have the AA true believers, long timers, old timers that have been around a long time, and you see them at all the events, and they're the speakers, and they sponsor everyone. That's almost like a lot of them are aligned in a spiritual way. And I almost don't consider myself in that group as much as I used to. But no, that's not true either. A lot of them have different alliances. There's bickerings and um, like my former sponsor was a pretty big speaker, and I remember one time somebody asked him about another big speaker, and he basically said he thought he was in hell because the guy just died. So there's definitely, but it is similar. And man, I look at Midwest or the whole TLC in a lot of the same way as AA is like, okay, I'm not just this was almost a decision I made. I'm not just going to encourage everyone to just pray to whatever will listen, you know. I also don't go in there and preach against that, but I can't in good conscience do that. Um, and because if I believe in Jesus exclusively, that's just the way I see it. But then I go to meetings and I see things, and I've always seen the fruits of the spirit and strange things and weird stories that I just, it's like I enjoy ghost stories and I just let them be. Do I need to prove it? Do I need to argue with it? When I say a ghost story, I don't mean ghosts. I mean just I heard this. I was listening to this guy last night. He was talking about he doesn't believe in miracles. He believes in metanormal events, and I like that. I like that term. You know, He- like he was saying. He was saying like and it's something I thought of. Well, I don't. I actually don't want to get into that. This is way off. This is way off. But I don't know. I kind of feel like I could go on talking with you, but I kind of feel like you know we should cut it off soon.
Well, I want to ask you one more question, at least
Sure, sure.
before.
No, I'm not in a rush to get off. I just feel like
Okay.
I'm trying to be, you're a father of how many children? Two?
Just one. Just one.
One. Okay.
Just
And
one.
you've 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 got a lot of stuff to do. So
It's okay. Um, you're someone I genuinely enjoy spending time with, and I think it's also because I'm still learning from AA, and it's actually relating to, but it's not just AA. It's you specifically, Mark. Like I really admire you in the corner. I'm very grateful that you're in the corner, and you're you're basically I want to call you the humblest person in the corner, but
yeah,
it's
I mean I've always thought of myself as that. Uh, I'm
I
glad
think
it's
you
finally
are.
being recognized. Actually,
Ron Copperman's pretty humble too.
Mark Parker said I was one of the most humble people in the corner too. So, and I've got you, Mark. I think I'm humble. I bet Chad would admit I'm humble if we didn't,
Chad's not that
So
humble. What Chad is excellent at is recognizing when he messes up and repenting. Chad is better at repentance than anyone I've ever met, ever. He's so good at
I
repentance.
I think that's why I get along with Chad because we understand each other's philosophies so well, but
Mm.
we're a lot different. Like
Yeah.
I'm more afraid to just, Chad is just so gregarious, and I'm more timid. I'm reserved, Um, but yeah, Chad actually I saw him the other day, and he said, people talk about relational ontology. He's like, what about other person ontology, other person centered ontology? And I
Yeah.
was thinking like, well, I don't really think that's the proper word use of the word ontology.
Well,
However, I haven't stopped thinking about that since he said that. Like I try to actually do that, you know.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
No, I see it. Well, I don't see it because your camera's off, but I hear it and I know it and I feel it. Um, yeah, I posted a comment under the live stream yesterday where I said, "Can I be a Calvinist toward other people and an infernalist toward myself?" PVK liked that comment, but maybe
I
that
don't
makes me
get
a
it.
heretic. Oh, it means that um, that I cannot change the fate of anybody else, but I can send myself to hell if I so choose.
Okay.
That's how I meant it. But or
Hmm.
the infernalist aspect of it is that a lot of me needs to burn away. Um,
How did I know this was going to come up in
what?
this infernalistic you know, I
That's not my
dude, I
question.
just
That's not
knew.
the thing I wanted to ask you. Now you're being less humble.
Good. That's just the real me.
So okay, the thing I wanted to ask you is about Matthew chapter 28, verses 18 to 20, which is, or 19 and 20. And that's the Great Commission.
Yeah,
So the Great Commission, but it's not actually the Great Commission. It doesn't say go and proclaim the gospel. It says, therefore go
make
and make
disciples.
disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teach them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age. So I the classic framing of the Great Commission is even if people don't listen, you got to go out and preach Jesus, Jesus to save you, Jesus in the morning, Jesus in the afternoon,
Right,
Jesus in
right.
your coffee, Jesus with the side of Jesus. Can I have,
Dude, yeah,
that
yeah. You
that
go to church, you go to a Protestant or evangelical church, and they're like, in the prayers, it's like, and God, help us to tell Jesus about everybody in our lives, or to talk about Jesus to everyone in our lives. And that's been hitting me like, what, dude? I don't know about that, you know?
yeah. Well, so yeah, so
I didn't mean
A
to
the
derail
gr-
you
the
there.
no 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 you're spot on because the Great Commission, at least in the framing of that passage, is not the same as what you just described. What it is go and make. What does it mean to make disciples? Like, what does it
Right.
actually mean to make disciples? That's the question. And then the second thing is like I've had this deep, call it a deep intuition. Well, two things. A deep suspicion of the first thing I was mentioning. Like throughout my life, anyone that's hammered me with something without substance behind it, that's when the punk rock comes in. And I trust the punk rock. Whereas the punk rock would say, like, you don't know what you're talking about. You're just repeating a mantra that you haven't lived and you haven't earned that wisdom, whatever it is. And then, so that's
And
the
that
suspicion.
response is
Yeah. Go ahead.
almost like an evil truth.
Yeah.
It's a truth that's destructive. Like, well, you're just repeating what you heard. You don't know. It's like that's
Mhm.
true. However, you can say that to everybody and send yourself to hell.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah. No, you're right.
but but
That's
you were
the arrogance Machiavellian Neal. Oh, I can calculate this. I can figure this out. Yeah, that's me. Um, all right. But then so that's the suspicion. But then the intuition is that there are better and deeper and more substantive ways of making disciples than the propositional, than repeating some words. The repeating of the words is a nice thing. It helps, or at least going through the motions of something, doing the reps, putting
and
in the
that does
time.
make some disciples too.
Yeah, it's true. Um, but how do you square AA's philosophy with that of the Great Commission and being a Christian? Like what, how do you contend with those things?
I think that's sort of on the same track. Well, first of all, I'm I've got tons of notes, and I don't know if I'll ever make because I'm working on other stuff, but I've got all these notes of how I want to make videos relating to how all the best stuff in AA comes from the Bible. It's more spread out and unorganized in the Bible. AA just took great biblical principles, put them in order, took out the theology, and then it changed the world, you know. Um, so like the Lord's Prayer, that's like a bunch of the steps are the Lord's Prayer and so on and so forth. But um, it is tricky. Uh, it's it's tricky, but actually, I just read this verse last night, and because we like the verse, where Paul says, "As much as possible, get along with everyone, whatever." And I like this one in First Peter chapter 2. And he starts in verse 13. He's like basically just talking about how to live. Therefore, submit yourself to every ordinances, blah, 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 blah. And then this is a great little paragraph. But on verse 17, he says, honor all people, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. Like, honor all people. I feel like, I don't know, there's so much there beyond like love your neighbor as yourself. We hear that so much. It almost loses its meaning. But honor all people, what does that mean? That's something I don't know. It really stuck with me when I read that. And even though I don't believe in Buddhism or occultism or even like some probably branches of Christianity in the end, like I have to honor all people. And if like in AA we have this term, we claim spiritual progress, not rather than spiritual perfection. I heard this preacher say direction, not perfection. If somebody is in the right direction, I'm not going to stop them. I will not stop anybody from doing any good thing, hopefully. You know, um, but and even though like propositions I believe are true, some of them are probably extremely important. I know they are, but at the same time, they're like I respect the relational people or the what a propositionalism versus whatever its opposite is, relate personalism or something.
Personalism. Yeah.
Um, I respect that point of view, and you have to have both. It's like the law and the prophets. They always talk about the law and the prophets. It's like the law was the way it's got to be, and the prophets was more of an intuitive spirit of the moment thing. And so it's like you have the propositional and the relational there. Um, but AA I kind of had to make a choice because for a lot of years it was like, well, this is keeping me alive, just encouraging people to follow the God of their own understanding. But making the decision I can't do that anymore, it was kind of scary. But then I realized that all I was doing was just trashing religion a lot of the time. I was using that as a reason to trash people's faith and act like, you just got to be some type of like anarchistic occultist or, perennial relativist, I don't know. And now that I do go into meetings, I don't preach at anyone because I know what it's like to be dying, and I know what it's like to just have a bunch of baggage against faith, against other people's faith. So I never preach. But I don't know. I feel like my time in AA trying to listen to other people has, you know, put me in a place where a lot of the time I can stay true to my convictions while honoring people. Like that's both of those things are extremely important. I actually have to put the honor first, but the conviction, the proposition has to be like right up there with it. I don't know. I'm still working, and that's kind of one of the reasons why I was saying like I'm afraid of the corner sometimes, where I can get carried away in a spirit and then say things I regret, not even bad things, like things that just feel good to say. Like I was thinking for this stream, like I wanted to have my regular avatar, but then put an anarchy sign over it, you know, just as a joke. But then it's like, I don't know, is that even right? Or would I regret that?
Not having an avatar is pretty punk rock.
But,
It's like you reject the whole concept that an avatar is needed.
well, I didn't mean to preach at you, but the, the question you asked was, it's like that honor all people really, really hit me. So,
I like that. I'm gonna keep that in mind.
um,
And it's none of that wannabe Apostle Paul. It's the real deal. It's Peter.
my Catholic friend Neal says, um,
On
but
this rock I will build my church. Hmm. Yeah. Um,
you know
I
what?
think
I
that's
was
good.
thinking what
Yeah.
would be cool is if we would have had like a soundtrack to where we could talk about songs and then, but maybe if anybody watches, they could just, go and skip around and listen to music. No, but
Absolutely.
that would probably be too much work.
Mhm. Well, I'm gonna listen to Am I Demon, which has 5.4 million views from Danzig. I don't know what
Yeah,
Danzig. Yeah. And that you said it's the Misfits guy. And then The
yeah,
Answer by Bad Religion. And I'm a big fan of Bad Religion. They're very much my style. Los Angeles is burning.
yeah. They had some
Yeah.
good songs.
21st Century Digital Boy. That was me. I don't know how to live, but I have a lot of toys.
Dude, that song is prophetic.
Yeah.
It's like late 90s, 21st century digital boy.
Hmm.
I mean, they had no idea how true that was. It's insane.
Yeah.
It's great stuff. You got any recommendations for me?
It's not a band. It's something that Chad sent me a while ago, but I downloaded it and I kept it. It's by a duo called the Secret Sisters. And the song that I really love by them is called If the World Was a House by the Secret Sisters. It's really good.
You, you know, I always enjoy when you're on streams, and I'm glad we finally got to talk because it seems like whenever we talk, there's like 10 other people,
Yeah.
that interrupt us. But I hope we did again because actually there's more stuff is coming to my mind, and it was like I got up real early, then I worked out and I worked on all this stuff, and so I was kind of tired. And so now I'm like thinking of all this stuff, but we should probably just save it for another time. Hopefully, talk again,
Yeah, we
if you're
definitely
up for
will.
that.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been a pleasure. So I'm gonna
Pleasure is
pause
mine.
recording, but stay on. I'm gonna stop recording.